we go. Let's begin. 58b2, right-hand column, the Mishnah as stated. So we're going on to the next piece of the Mishnah. The Mishnah begins. So now, the Kohen Gadol is either standing in one place and reaching his hand around the small inside altar, Mizbeach HaPanimi, which only stands an amo by an amo, 18 inches by 18 inches. So he either reaches around with his hands and puts the blood, applies the bloods, the mixed bloods, directly onto the four corners, or he walks around applying it. It should be pointed out, by the way, that the small inner altar of one amma by one amma is equal in size to the horns of the corner of the outside altar of the Mizbeach HaChitza that's sitting in the Azara, as opposed to the Mizbeach HaPanimi, the inside altar, which is sitting inside the Heichel. That's the difference in size we're dealing with here. The total Mizbeach on the inside equals one corner horn of the Mizbeach HaChitza and the outside Mizbeach, the copper Mizbeach. Okay, so now the Mishnah went on and explained, it went through the different machlokes. The Tanna Kama says, the sequence in which the Tanna Kama said you walk around the altar to the four corners. And so now the Gemara is going to go into the details. Tanu Rabbanan, Hischel Mechate V'Yorei. He begins to apply the blood downwards. Where did he begin from? Mikeren Mizrachis Derivus. He begins with the southeast corner of the small incest altar, the Mizbeach HaPanimi, the Mizbeach HaKetayres. Then he goes from the southeast, the Florida corner. He goes to the Raimis Mazravis. He then switches over to the north-southwest to California and works his way up. Maravis Sephinis into the northwest Washington state, and then Sephinis Mizrachis into New England, Divrei Rabbi Akiva. And the reason why is because Rabbi Akiva holds that the curtains of the Kodesh HaKadoshim, of the Holy of Holies, which the Kohen Gadol is coming from, it opens into the regular sanctuary from the south, from the bottom, if you remember, because there are two curtains according to Rabbi Akiva. So when he comes out of the south, he's facing in front of him the south area, the south side of the Mizbeach. So that's the first place of which he gets to. The first place that he actually gets to is the southwest, the California corner of the Mizbeach. So the Gemara is going to ask that. Okay, I understand you're telling me he comes back out between the curtains from the north to the south. So he comes back out into the Heichel in the south. And so he encounters the Mizbeach in the south. But so why doesn't he begin with the southwest? Why is he beginning in Florida on the southeast? The Gemara is going to tackle that in a minute. Rabbi Yossi HaGalili says, no, he starts from Mikeren Mizrachis Sephinis. We're now on 58b3. 58b3. He begins from the northeast corner, from the Boston corner, from the New England corner. Sephinis Maravis. Then he goes to the northwest, to Washington State. Maravis to Raimis, goes back down to California, and the Raimis Mizrachis, and ends up in Florida. Okay? And why is that? Because according to Rabbi Yossi, in fact, there's only one curtain. If you look at number 24 on the bottom, and the one curtain is open in the north. So when he comes out of the Kodesh HaKadoshim, when he comes out of the area where the Holy Ark, the Aron HaKodesh is located, he encounters the Mizbeach, the altar, on its north side. Then we have the same question. Why doesn't he start with the northwest, since obviously that's where he's coming to first? And why does he go to the northeast? Anyways, the Gemara says,
Can I ask a question?
Sure, go ahead.
So it's obvious that Rabbi Akiva is going clockwise and Yossi Aglili is going counterclockwise.
Correct.
Forgetting about where they start from.
Right. But in fact, that's not what the issue here is.
Okay.
The issue here, you have to play it out because there's one other thing you forgot to ask. We learned earlier we're always supposed to move to the right.
Right. Yeah, well, they are going to the right. Because if they reach the west first, they then go to the right.
But according to Rabbi Akiva, they're clearly going left. If you start in Florida, you're going left. You're making a lot of lefts.
Right. That's why I'm saying he's going clockwise.
Right, exactly. So we have to let's play it out. Let's learn the Gemara.
Right.
Because you're picking on the nuances of the Gemara, which the Gemara is going to start tackling right now. So first, Malkin Shirabi Gamlili, Yossi Galili Maslo, the place where Yossi Galili begins, i.e., Yossi Galili begins in New England, in the northeast corner. Sham Rabbi Akiva Paisik. That's where Rabbi Akiva stops. Malkin Shirabi Akiva Maslo. The place where Rabbi Akiva Maslo in Florida, the Florida corner, the southeast. Sham Rabbi Yossi Galili Paisik. That's where Rabbi Yossi stops. But says the Gemara, the Kula Almamia, at any rate, everybody agrees. Bahu Keren, the Pogavaratio, the corner in which the Kohen Gadol sees first, i.e., from Rabbi Akiva, from the south side that he comes out between the two curtains, he encounters the Mizbeach from the south. Rabbi Yossi Aglili says it's one curtain, you encounter it in the north, right? You encountered it in the north, right? We learn over there, Bahu carried the Pagabarishan, loy of it. At the end of the day, the first corner, he doesn't start the application of the blood. The first corner that he meets, according to Rabbi Akiva, is the southwest corner. According to Rabbi Yossi, the first corner is the northwest corner. And both of them say you skip that and keep moving to the other north, either the other south corner, southeast, according to Rabbi Akiva, or the northeast, according to Rabbi Yossi Galili. That's the starting point. So why is that? My Tama. If the whole reason that they both say, they both say you begin either south or north, because that's the first place that the Kohen Gadol bangs into, then you should start with the first corner, which is the west corner, either northwest or southwest. That should be the first corner to be started. My Tama, what's the reason that they don't? Says the Hama Shmuel, the Hama Kra, the Yotza El Hamizbeach. He shall go out to the Mizbeach. Dinofik Mikule Mizbeach. That means until he passes the entire length of the Mizbeach, that's what's called going out to the altar. When you go out of the Kodesh HaKadoshim, the Holy of Holy, the pasuk says, "V'yotze el hamizbeach." Dinofik tekula mizbeach until he travels all the entire length of the entire mizbeach, which means he has to get to the east corner, whether the southeast according to Rabbi Akiva or the northeast according to Rabbi Yossi Galili. So now says the Gemara. And this is what Charlie was alluding to. Rabbi Akiva, nofik derech yamin. According to Rabbi Akiva, let the Kohen Gadol circle to his right, counterclockwise. Why does he have him moving to his left? I.e., from the southeast, you have to make a left to get to California, to the southwest. So what's going on? Lema, so should we argue? Lema kiderami by Yecheskel come a pligi. Do we say that Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Yossi Galili are arguing in what Rabbi Rami by Yecheskel said? The Rami by Yecheskel, which we had earlier in the Masechta, Yom Shas Shlomo, the basin, the mikvah that Shlomo built, which was a remarkable mikvah, which was a mikvah that was self-standing. It was a huge basin. It was a huge basin. Oimed al Shnayim Esibaka was standing, as it were, propped up on 12 stone oxen. Shloisha b'fnim, shloisha panim tzefayna, shloisha panim. I'm sorry. Shloisha panim tzefayna, shloisha panim Yoma, shloisha panim migba, shloisha panim mizracha. 3 turned to the north, 3 turned to the west, 3 turned to the south, and 3 turned to the east. That's the way their heads were facing. And the basin that was on top of them, that was being held up by these 12 oxen, right, were on top of it, and all their backs were inward. It means that all turns that you should make are to the right and to the east, because that was the way their heads were facing. By the way, this mikvah is remarkable in another sense. We all know from the theory, the concept of pi r squared. You should know that the Gemara in Eruvin spends a good omid explaining how the circumference of Shlomo HaMelech's the diameter and the circumference of Shlomo HaMelech's mikvah was designed. And the Gemara over there discusses pi r squared. The Gemara in its typical way says it's infinite number. So we roll it up to number 3. We don't have 3.14, etc., etc. The Gemara goes ahead, 3. Frank, I believe it's Abaya. What do you do with the extra? Then the Gemara says, all right, don't worry about the extra. Right? But the point is, the Gemara goes in to, and Rashi and Taisus, specifically Taisus over there, really goes into the whole idea of pi r squared and the infinite number. Which goes to show that Chazal had a university education. As you keep going through, you realize the amount of knowledge that they drew from the Gemara and drew from our people, as you're going to see constantly, made them the preeminent mathematicians and scientists of their day, especially of the human condition, the sociologist side of the condition, but also very much on the mathematics side of the equation. Anyways, so what do you see? You got to go to the right. Say, pray to Gemara, Ma Islay the Rabbi Bar Yecheskel. Should we say that Rabbi Yossi HaGalili goes according to Rabbi Bar Yecheskel, and that's why he has a moving to the right? Umarli the Rabbi Bar Yecheskel, and Rabbi Akiva does not hold the Rabbi Bar Yecheskel. Says Gemara, loy the Kula Rabbi Bar. Everybody holds you got to move to your right and to the east. This is where they're arguing. Mar Savar Rabbi Yossi HaGalili says Yalpin upon Michutz, that we learn the laws of the inside of the Heichol and its Mizbeach, the Mizbeach Panimi, from the halachis of the outside Mizbeach in the courtyard, the Mizbeach Achitzain, the large Mizbeach in the courtyard, which has a pasuk. The pasuk describes the activity and the way you go around with regard to the Mizbeach Achitzain, the outside Mizbeach. And we extrapolate and we learn from one Mizbeach to the next. And so, just like on the outside Mizbeach, you move from the northeast and you come around, what do you call it, and you move yourself to the right. Rabbi Rami Bar Yecheskel's principle is applicable. Umar Saba Lo Yafin Panim Michutz, we're on 58b4, and what Rabbi Akiva holds, we do not learn from the outside, from the Mizbeach that's in the Azara. We don't learn halachas to the inside, the halachas of the Heichel and its Mizbeach. And so therefore, just because you have a principle of moving to the right and to the east, nonetheless, that doesn't apply on the inside. Says the Gemara Rabbi Akiva, need in the Yalav Panim Michutz, that you don't penim michutz, you don't learn the inside from the outside, you don't learn the halachas of the Heichel from the Hazara. But therefore, nonetheless, say, if the Kohen wishes, he can do it like that, a circle to his left. If he wants to, he can do it to the right. Why does Rabbi Akiva say that the circle must be to the left? Says the Gemara, Amalach Rabbi Akiva, Medina Bahu Keren the Poga Beresha, Bahu of Beresha. Because normally, the corner that he first encounters when he leaves the Kodesh HaKadoshim, according to Rabbi Akiva, that's the west, the southwest, the San Diego corner of the Mizbeach. Should be the one that he applies the blood first. The Amar Reish Lakish, because Rav Lakish states the principle, Ein Mavirin ala mitzvahs. We do not pass over the opportunity to do mitzvahs. So therefore, why doesn't he do it? Because the Torah limits us. And he should go out to the Mizbeach until he passes the entire Mizbeach, which means that he passes by the southwest and goes all the way to the southeast. And when he gets to that corner, the southeast corner, obviously, it makes a lot of sense that, of course, he should turn and go back to the corner, which he should have really put the blood first, i.e. the southwest. He has to go to the southeast, not only because of the pasuk, b'yotz el mizbeach. But once he travels through the entire length of the mizbeach and gets to the southeast, obviously logic says he should go back to the southwest where he should have started from. Well, once you start over there, you work your way around to the northwest, and then to the northeast. Good. We're on today's daf. Nun Tes Amid Aleph. 59A1. Pretty amazing. We've almost done 60 daf in Yoma. The Iba is Sema, but if you want, you can learn another way. If I hold that the Kohen Gadol moved around the Mizbeach Kapanimi, the small Mizbeach, the 1 amma by 1 amma, 18 inches by 18 inches altar, he moved around it by foot. Okay, the Kul Amaloi Pligi, the Alfin Panim Michutz, then everybody would agree that you learn the halachis of the inside Mizbeach, of the Heichol, from the laws of the outside Mizbeach. Just like in the outside Mizbeach, you turn to your right when you're moving around. So too, even Rabbi Akiva would agree, if he's doing it with his legs, if he's walking around with his legs, then he certainly can go ahead. He certainly has to go to his right. But but here we're arguing. Marsa, Rabbi Akiva holds hakofa biyad. The way he went around was in fact with the hands, meaning he stood in one place and merely leaned over to do the applications, because it's very small and he could do that. In such a case, you start in the southeast because you have to travel through the entire Mizbeach. Then you turn around and you go ahead and you go ahead and you go back to the southwest and you work your way around. And Rabbi Yosi Aglili holds Beregel. No, you never do it by hand. You always do it with legs. Okay, and therefore you got to move to the right. When you go with your legs, you got to move to the right. Can everybody hear me, by the way? Because the only thing I see is my own shirt. Okay. Oh no, that is very funny. That is very funny. Charlie, I believe you're wearing a similar. Oh no, that was my shirt. I think something happened over here. No, let it go. I thought your shirt was my shirt. There we go. Anyways, the Iba is saying the Kula Alma Hakofa Mi Biyad. Everybody, even Rabbi Yosef Galili agrees. The Kohen stands in one place and he's just leaning over with his hands to apply the blood. Yad Miregel. Rabbi Yosef Galili learns the halachas of the yad of the hand from the feet. He said, what's the difference? You have to apply the blood. Therefore, your hands are just like your legs with regard to applying. Just like with your legs, if you move around, you got to move to the right. Your hands also have to move to the right. Umar Saba and Rabbi Kiva says, no, hands are hands, feet are feet. If you're going to be on the move, move to the right. If you're standing still and merely leaning over, it's logical. Start in the southeast because you have no choice because of the pasuk, and then move back to the southwest where you really should have logically started in the first place. So it says the Gemara, "B'savar Rav Yosei Galila Kafa Biyad." But is it true that Rav Yosei Galili really holds that the Mizbeach HaPanimi, you apply the blood by hand, you don't move around? But when the end of our Mishnah says, Rabbi Eliezer says, our Mishnah said this, the Kohen stood in his place while applying the blood on each of the corners. It means that the Tanakama does not hold it. Rabbi Eliezer seems to be arguing on the Tanakama. He holds that the circuit must be done by foot. Now, since the Tanakama of our Mishnah is Rabbi Yosei Galili, because our Tanakama has the circular motion of Rabbi Yosei Galili, we see that you actually have to walk around the Mizbeach HaPanimi. Says, you're right. Let's go. The best answer is what we said in the first place. And Rabbi Kiva says he stood in one place and did it with the hand, and therefore you work to your left. You must use your legs, and therefore you got to move to your right. You could also say they're arguing like this. When the pasuk says the word around the Mizbeach Panimi, it's talking about, in fact, the Mizbeach HaPanimi, the inside Mizbeach, B'saviv the Mizbeach HaChitzai, which can then be translated or interpreted with the term around, which is also written with regard to the Mizbeach HaChitzai. So we have a hekish. We have a hekish to compare Saviv, just like it says Saviv, around, by the outside Mizbeach, by the Mizbeach HaChitzai, by the Mizbeach HaPanimi, the inside Mizbeach, the Mizbeach of the Ketairos of the incest. It also says around. Therefore, just like you go around, just like the Kohen Gadol definitely goes around the outside Mizbeach, which is enormous, he must go around in order to apply, right? Therefore, same thing with the inside Mizbeach. He's got to circle around with his legs, obviously. And Rabbi Akiva holds, it's coming to teach us that the entire Mizbeach HaPanimi, the entire inside Mizbeach, takes the space of one single corner horn of the Mizbeach HaChitzai. The four corners of the Mizbeach HaChitzai, which were horns, they rose up like this, like a box of tissues in each corner, like four little horns on each corner, or four columns. Those columns were all 1 amma by 1 amma, which means they were exactly the same size as the Mizbeach HaPanimi, which was only measured 1 amma by 1 amma itself. And that's what it's coming to teach us, that in fact they were equal in size, and they were equal in size, and that's all that it's really coming to teach us. Tanya, we learned in the Brayso. Amar Rabbi Shmuel, Shnei Kahanim Gedolim Nishtaru b'Migdash Rishon. Switch the word from Migdash Rishon to Migdash Sheni. 2 Kahanim Gedolim remained alive from the days of the second Beis Hamikdash. The Agoyas Hagra switches it. The Vilna Gaon switches it. Migdash Sheni. One Kohen Gadol said, "Biyodi hikafti." I went around on Yom Kippur, the Heichal, placing the blood on it during Yom Kippur. I went around with my hands. Daddy, we're on Nuntes Amid Aleph, 59A1, 59A1, the right hand column. The right hand column. Again, I'll just start again. Tanya, we learned. Rabbi Hamad Rabbi Yishmael. Shnei Ganim Gedolim Nishtaru b'Mikdash Rishon. Two Ganim Gedolim remained. Switch the word Rishon for Sheni. Remained from the second base of Mikdash. Again, the Goyas Hagra, the Vilna Goyen switches it to Mikdash Sheni, the second temple. One said, I went around the Mizbeach HaPanimi by standing still, and I simply leaned over my hand to apply the blood to each one of the corners. And one said, no, I went with my feet. I circled it, I moved around. One Kohen Gadol gave reasons for his doing, and the other one gave reasons for his doing. Because it says Saviv the Mizbeach Panimi, Kisaviv the Mizbeach Achitzai. The word Saviv is found by the inside Mizbeach, the small Mizbeach of the Mizbeach HaPanimi, and we find the same word Saviv regarding the Mizbeach Achitzai, the outside, the large Mizbeach of the Mizbeach Achitzai. So we have a hekish, we have a comparison. Just like you go around the Mizbeach HaChitzai, obviously with your legs, because there's no other way of doing it, and the pasuk is clear about it that you go with your legs. So too, you go around with your legs around the Mizbeach HaPanimi, even though it's so small, you can do it with your hands. That in fact, the entire the Mizbeach HaPanimi measured 1 amma by 1 amma, 18 inches by 18 inches, which matched the one corner column that was found on each one of the corners of the Mizbeach HaChitzai. Okay, so what you have over here is that in fact, it turns out that either way is good. Okay, because you saw we had two different Kahanim Gedolim during the second base of Mikdash. Each one did it their own way. What it could not be because they understood it to be that way, which goes to show that even in the second base of Mikdash, the actual halachas of the Avodah were not completely known, and there was no Navi, there were no more Nevi'im, and so there was no way to try to get an answer from above. And since the halacha is Torah loy b'shamayim hi, the Torah is not in heaven. It's been given to us. To 59a2. 59a2. Rabbi Eliezer, the Mishnah went further, and Rabbi Eliezer is the one who said straight out. He's kind of stood in one place, and he leaned his hands over to apply the blood, the dam on the Mizbeach HaPanimi. Okay, on all of them, he did the blood from bottom to top. Because if you lean over from where you are, you'll see that the easiest way to do it is from bottom to top when you lean over, except for the corner that's right in front of you where you do from top to bottom. Okay? Says the Gemara, Masnis and Mani. Okay, you brought in Rabbi Eliezer. What's going on over there? Says the Gemara, Rabbi Yehudi. It's actually Rabbi Yehudi. It's a Tanya. Rabbi Meir says, Rabbi Eliezer oime, the Mekaima oime umechate. Rabbi Eliezer stood in his place and put on the blood. And he says, on all of the corners, he actually applied the blood from top to bottom. He leaned over and he rubbed his fingers along the Mizbeach. So when you rub it, you can do it from top to bottom. Except for the corner diagonally across from him, in which he put the blood from bottom to top. Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Elazar, actually on all of them he applied it from bottom to top, because he says you don't rub along it, you lean over and you pull up your hand, smearing the blood. Except for the one that's immediately in front of him, which you apply from top to bottom. Ki heichdeloy this tapson money, so that his clothing, his vestment should not become dirty. Says the Gemara, says the Mishnah. Hizu mimenu, after they finished, the Kohen Gadol finished smearing, applying the blood on the corners. He then sprinkled, not applied, sprinkled, spritzed. Hizu mimenu al tahara isham mizbech. He sprinkled 7 times onto the purity of the Mizbech Hazav, of the Mizbech HaPanimi, the golden altar, the inside altar. So says the Gemara, my Tahara, what does this mean? The purity of the altar. What does it mean? Rabba bar Rav Shila, says Rabba bar Rav Shila, Palge de Mizbeach. It means the midpoint at the 9-inch, since we say it's 1 amma, at a half a amma, let's say 9 inches, if we say an amma is 18 inches, on the midpoint of the Mizbeach, halfway up the wall. 9 inches. Like people say, it became bright, meaning it's midday, the sun is right on top of it. Which is midday. So same thing over here. It means sprinkle the blood at the mid of the wall. Says the Gemara, no. Basic. I have a kasha to you from a brisa. Kishu Maza, when he sprinkles on the Mizbeach HaPanimi, he does not sprinkle upon the ashes that are on top, the ashes of the incense of the Ketairis, the loyal gabe gecholim, nor upon the coals, not on the coals. Rather, he first takes the coals and rakes them from side to side to clear a clean spot on the top of the Mizbeach. And that's where he sprinkles. He sprinkles on top of the Mizbeach. Says the Gemara, in that case, what it means, the purity, the tahara shel Mizbeach, the purity of the Mizbeach means the blood should be sprinkled on the exposed top of the Mizbeach. And it was the appearance of the heavens in its purity. In other words, with no clouds, a beautifully blue sky day. Same thing over here. Sprinkle it on, not on the stuff that's on top of it, but that's actually exposed on top. Tanya, we learned, Chanan said, B'tzad Sefaini hu noising. The Kohen Gadol actually applies the blood 7 times on the north side of the top of the Mizbeach HaPanimi. Rabbi Yosi Omer, B'tzad Deraimi hu noising. He applies it on the south side of the face of the top of the Mizbeach HaPanimi. B'mai kamapligi, what are they arguing in? Mar Savach, Rabbi Chanina holds, Pischa B'Dorim Kari, that he comes out of the Holy of Holies, that the entrance to the Holy of Holies was in the south. And it was in the south, okay? So if it was in the south, he says like this, the first corner he encounters, therefore, is the south. The southeast, meaning the southwest, he has to pass by because the pasuk says he has to cover the entire Mizbeach. So the first corner that he does is the southeast. So therefore, when he smeared the blood, he worked his way around, right? Concluding according to Rabbi Akiva, went to southeast, southwest, northwest to northeast. He starts in the northeast. So Hananiah says he finishes applying the blood in the northeast, in the New England corner of the Mizbeach. So that's where he should spray. He's standing there already. Let him spray in the northeast corner. That's where he's going to spray the 7 times to the top of the Mizbeach. Umar Savar 59A3 Pischa B'Tzafon Kai. The other master of Yosi holds that the entrance was in the north, which means that the first corner he gets to is the northwest, but he has to pass it. He has to pass it because the pasuk says you have to cover the entire when you leave the Kodesh HaKadoshim, you have to go al el HaMizbeach. Do the Mizbeach, it means the entire Mizbeach. So he starts according to Rabbi Yossi Galili in the northeast corner, in the New England corner, and then he moves northeast, northwest, southwest, and ends in Florida in the southeast corner. Therefore, he's already in the southeast corner. Let him pray in the southeast corner. So says the Gemara, the Kula Amamiya, everybody agrees. Heicha de Gamina Matanas Karanas, that wherever you finish the application, the presence, the matana is a present, the present of the blood on whichever corner you finish, either the northeast according to Rabbi Akiva or the southeast according to Rabbi Yosef Galili, Hasim Yoyev al Gagoy, that's the place where you apply the 7 spritzes of blood on the roof of the top of the altar. My top. What's the reason? Amakra, because the pasuk says V'tiharo b'kidashto, and he shall purify the inside altar and sanctify it. Makom shekotshai sham tiharo, the place where he sanctifies it by finishing the applications of dam, that's the place where he should purify it. We're going to go for another 5 minutes because I must end today by 9 o'clock. So here we go. The remaining of the blood, the shiraim of the blood, they would pour on the western base of the outer mizbeach, of the mizbeach hachitzon, and it would pour into the Nachal Kidron, into the valley of Kidron. The Amakra, because the pasuk says the Eis Kol Dama Bar Yishbach, and all the blood he shall pour on the base that is at the entrance of the oil mayit, which of course the heichal is comparative to the oil mayit. The chinofik, and when the kohen gadol exits from the oil mayit or the sanctuary and walks towards the Hazara and the outside mizbeach, bahu paga bereisha. He obviously bangs into the western base first, so there he pours the blood. Says the Gemara, but the rest of the year of the kabbanis, the zevachim, the sacrifices that you brought all year long on the outer mizbeach, on the mizbeach hachitzon, the blood over there, the extra blood would be poured on the south base, not on the west base. And the Gemara explains, Tanu Rabbana, Yisoid HaMizbeach, and he would pour it on the base of the outer Mizbeach. Say Yisoid Deraimis, that's the southern base. Ata, I mean Yisoid Deraimis. Oyein El Yisoid Marabas. Now, do you really mean to say it's the southern base and not the western base, like you do on Yom Kippur? Amrit, Yilmad Yiridisai Min HaKebesh, Loitzia Min HaHeichel. Learn the Kohen's descent down the ramp, following the everyday application on the Mizbeach HaChitzon, from his exit from the Heichel, following the application of the blood on the Mizbeach HaPinimi. Ma Yitzias Min HaHeichel B'Samach Loi, just like on his exit from the Heichel to the Mizbeach HaChitzon, from the inside to the Mizbeach HaChitzon in the Hazara, he goes to the first base that he encounters. They said, "Say Yisoid Maravi," and that's where he pours the remaining blood. So when he comes down the ramp on the Mizbeach HaChitzon, what's the first corner he comes to? They said, "Say Yisoid Raimis." He comes to the southern base. Tanya, we learned of Shmuel Loimeh. Yisoid Maravi. This blood, the blood of the Mizbeach HaPinimi and the blood of the Mizbeach HaChitzon are all done on the western base. He argues. Rabbi Shimon ben Yochanan Aimer, Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai Aimer, Zebazeh Rami. In fact, both are done. The blood of the inside and the blood of the outside altar is done on the southern base. Bitch, like Rabbi Yishmael, God's fine, Rabbi Yishmael, that says that both kind of chattas, whether the chattas of the Mizbeach HaPinimi, whether the chattas of the Mizbeach HaChitzon, their extra blood are poured on the west. Simple. Kesava Yilmite Sosim Mifirish. We learned the undefined case from the defined case. Just the blood of the Mizbeach HaPanimi clearly goes on the western base. So therefore, we're now on 59.84. So therefore, the blood of the Mizbeach HaChitzon, which is not defined in the Torah, will follow and go on and be poured out. The extra blood will be put on the western base. Reb Shimon ben Yochai, my Tama, why does he hold you do everything in the south? The inner, the Mizbeach HaPanimi, the first corner that it encounters is the western corner. Rav Ashi Kisova Pischa B'Darim Kai, because Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai holds that the entire entrance of the Heichal stood in the south of the Mizbeach. Look at the picture on number 27. That in fact, according to Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai, the Mizbeach itself was in the north, but the ramp was in the south. So the first base that he encounters is the southern base. Answer is easy. Tana de Bei Rabbi Yishmael, and in fact, the yeshiva of Rabbi Yishmael, Kid de Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai, actually, the Brais of Rabbi Shimon ben Rabbi Yishmael was taught in the yeshiva of Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai. So you can see that Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai ended up agreeing with Rabbi Yishmael. Zev and Zeh Yisai Deraimis, that this and that are poured into the southern base. So you see that Rabbi Shimon, that according to Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai's students, Rabbi Yishmael agreed with Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai. Usemanach, and they made a simon for it. B'shuchei Gabra leGabra. The man drew the man. The men of the yeshiva, Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai, drew the man, Rabbi Yishmael, to their position. Okay. I hate to do this to you because, let me see if I can do the next summit real quick. Here we go. Okay. And the next summit is very short. Well, I'll explain why we have a big crisis in a minute. The blood of both of these and these would mix together. The both of them poured out, whether in the western base or the southern base, and will pour out into the Kidron Valley, and that would be sold to the gardeners for fertilizer, and the money would be redeemed, and the blood would be redeemed onto the money, and the money would be used in the Mizbeach. Because if one used the blood by itself for unauthorized use, he'd be over on Me'ilah, on inappropriate use. Tanu Rabbanan, Moilin B'damim, that teaches us that you can be moil, you can commit Me'ilah with blood, with the sacrificial blood. Divi Rameya Rabbi Shimon. That's what Rameya Rabbi Shimon said. We do not commit Me'ilah with sacrificial blood. We don't, because they hold something very basic. Once the avodah is done, it's done. Once you've applied the blood, you've accomplished, you've created the atonement. It's done. The remainder is not that holy that you should be over on the Me'ilah on it. Now, Amid Beis, Nun Tes Amid Beis, 59b. Ad kan lo pligi ela b'drabanan. Here they're only arguing in the Rabbanan. Zok Rashi, the first Rashi on the page on Amid Beis. Ela b'drabanan, man de Oma Moilin, the one who holds that you are over, that you, if you have blood, you could be over on the Me'ilah and using it inappropriate. It's only midrabanan, kama. It's only a dimidrabanan, which means l'shalem keren, to only pay for the actual principle of what the blood is worth. Aval midiaraisa, on a diaraisa din, that rule is if you're over on Me'ilah, you have to pay the principal, and lohoisif chaimish, and midiaraisa, you have to pay a penalty, an extra 20% over and above the principal price. Here, loy, you do not. Zok taisvis, the top taisvis, the e-midiaraisa, because if you're going to say that this question of whether blood has a din of Me'ilah is a biblical in nature, in that case, la yotzimidei Me'ilah, and it doesn't go out in Me'ilah, it remains holy and has a din of Me'ilah. How did you ever sell it in the first place to the gardeners? By the very fact that you're selling it to the gardeners tells you that, biblically speaking, you're allowed to, but rabbinically you got a din of Me'ilah. So says the Gemara, but biblically speaking, everybody agrees you do not commit Me'ilah with sacrificial blood. How do they know this? How do you know, Zakrashi? How do you know the A Me'ila Gedomen? How do you know there's no Me'ila with blood? Amakra, the Pasuk says, Lochem. The Pasuk says, Lochem. Ki nefesh habosa b'dam hu v'ani nesati lochem. And I gave it to you, al mizbeach lechaper, on your mizbeach to atone for you. So shalachem yiyeh, it shall be yours. Well, if it's yours, clearly meaning that you, what do you call you? If you have benefit, you're not over on me'ilo. The Beir of Shimon Tana, Rabbi Shimon teaches lechaper. The pasuk says lechaper al nafshe seichet, to atone for your souls, right? I gave it to you to be an atonement for you, but not to add more problems for you to be over on Me'ila. Rav Yochanan says, Omakro, the end of the pasuk says, Ki hadam hu ba'nefesh yidam. For it's in the blood, it is the blood that atones for the soul. Right? So he says like this, Omakro, who? It. Lifnei kapara la'acha kapara. To teach us that before atonement, before the application, before the zerika, before the spraying of the blood, before the atonement takes place, im kol zeh, it's still not, you're still not over on me'ilo. You still cannot, if you use it inappropriately, you're not guilty. Just like after the atonement, the blood is not subject to me'ilo. Once we have a time period where the dam is now no longer misappropriated and no longer me'ilo, that's after the atonement was done. So now there's no need for the blood anymore. Well, blood is blood is blood is blood. That means even before you're not over on me'ilo. So the Gemara of the Ema is that a fact. Kapara, after we get atonement is like before atonement. Kapara, so go the other way. I'll argue to you the opposite direction. Kapara yesh by me'ila, just like before this atonement, there is me'ila. Kapara yesh by me'ila. Say just the opposite. Say just like before the atonement takes place, there's obviously inappropriation. Once the blood has the din me'ila should remain on it even after the atonement is reached. Who said you argue one way, argue it the other way? Says the Gemara, but there's no such thing as an item whose mitzvah has been done that retains its me'ila. Says the Gemara, is that true? The separating of the ash in the morning, if you remember, overnight they burnt up on top of the mizbeach the emurim, the fats, the emurim and chalovim, the leftover sacrificial parts and the fats. They burnt it on top the night after from the previous day. They burnt it on top, and in the morning you have to do trumas hadeshen, and you have to take the ash. And the problem with the trumas hadeshen is you're not allowed to give. You're not allowed to throw it away. It has to be put on the side of the mizbeach because the pasuk says geniza. It needs to be put inside. You can't have any benefit from it. So you see the ash, which is the mitzvah, and after the mitzvah is done, you still have an itzar of me'ilah. You said the big Tosfos on the side goes back and forth all through Shas, where in fact that may not exactly hold true, and that's what Tosfos is busy with. But anyways, says the Gemara, and we're now on tomorrow's daf, Samech Amud Aleph, working our way all the way to the Mishnah. In about a millisecond, says the Gemara, Mishum Dahabe, we're on 68.1. Mishum Dahabe, Trumas HaDefinition of Big Day Kahuna. We can't apply it because we have two psukim. One with regard to the separation of the ash, and one pasuk that's talking about the begodim, the priestly begodim vestments of the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur, which both require geniza, both require being putting aside, and we have a rule, which means you can't have benefit from it. They have to be put aside. And the rule is, Shnei Ksuvim Aboim Ke'echad, when I have two psukim that are coming to teach me the same law, in this case, the law of geniza, putting it aside, When you have two psukim that are coming to learn the same thing, we cannot learn it out further to a third thing. Because we say the Torah was particular in these two places and no further with anyone else. That's good. That's say that the pasuk tells us with regard to the Kohen Gadol's clothing of Yom Kippur. It shall leave it there, that it requires permanent concealment and is also for benefit. According to Reb Daisu says that the linen priestly vestments of the Kohen Gadol could be used by a regular Kohen throughout the year. What is he going to say? Then in that case, we only have one pasuk that teaches us of Chumas Hadesh that require Geniza, and that should be able, when you have one pasuk, you can learn to other psukim, which would then tell me what he called, then would mess up our whole thing about Dam not having Me'ilah. Says the Gemara, Mishum Dahavi Chumas Hadesh Be'egla Rufa. I've got another pasuk, because I've got Chumas Hadesh and Be'egla Rufa. The Egla Rufa is when they find a dead body between two towns. They have to decapitate a calf by the valley, and then the town that's closest to the murder victim has a whole bunch of psukim that have to say. And in the case of the decapitated cow, the same law is that it has to be put aside and cannot be benefited from. So Zafti Gemara, the one according to the one who says that no, if I have two psukim, that's enough for me to teach further on. What are you going to say? Then you can learn it to Dam, that the same thing that it has Mehila. By the way, Taisvis points out over here, therefore I have three psukim. Chumas Hadesh, the clothing of the Kohen Gadol, and the Egla Rufa. And when I have three psukim that are teaching me the same thing, then I can learn it out as far as I want. But Taisus goes into it. I'm not getting into it. Taisus says the Gemara is coming to what he called work out Rav Taisus in a different way, anyways. So Zakti Gemara, Trey Miyutik said there are two exclusionary terms in the Psukim over here, with regard to the Chumas Hadesh and the separating of the ash. It says the Samai, and he placed it next to the altar. And in the case of the decapitated calf, it says Ha-arufa. The pasuk actually says Al ha-egla ha-arufa. So it says the hey twice. Al ha-egla ha-arufa. You got at least one extra hey ayadiyah. This comes to teach us, and now we're on 68 too, and this is where we're ending because I'm running late. So this teaches us that in these two, it's only doctrine in these two cases and nowhere else to require Ganin so that they can't be benefited from. These are the only two cases that after its mitzvah is done, Me'ilah still applies. Everywhere else it doesn't. Says the Gemara, Bahani Talai Kra Badam Lamli. Why did I need all three psukim? One of them should have been enough to exclude it from the laws of Me'ilah. Chad Lamiute Minaisa. One to exclude blood, the Isser of blood from the laws of Nicer. That means if you leave it over, you don't have a problem with Nicer. B'chad lemuute b'me'ilah, to exclude blood from the laws of Me'ilah. B'chad lemuute mituma, and one to exclude blood from the laws of Tuma. That in fact, that if a Tumadik person would eat the dam, he would only be over on eating the dam, but he would not be over on Me'ilah. Pigel doesn't even need a pasuk. Pigel is when I have a machshav and zari is that I'm going to eat it after its time. Time delay. It's not kol sheyesh lematirin, anything that has a permitter. For an example, zarika, spritzing the blood in a shlomim. The owners of the shlom can only eat the meat after the Kohen Gadol sprays the blood, or the spraying of the blood allows us to offer up the emurim, the leftover sacrificial parts, onto the mizbeach. It can't be done until the trigger is pulled on the zrika. So we say like this: whether for people like the shlomim or the mizbeach, like the emurim that need to be brought up onto the mizbeach to be burned, chayavim aleim mishum pigel. You would be mechayiv koris for pigul if you have in mind to do it a day later. But the blood itself is merely a permitter, and it does not have the law of pigul, and you're not chayiv pigul. Great, guys.